When he first heard that his uncle had left something behind for him, he expected it to be something normal. Maybe a box of old tools, maybe some old books, or even a small piece of land no one cared about. His uncle had always been a quiet man who kept strange hobbies, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to receive. He walked to the old storage shed where the officials told him the inheritance was kept. He thought he would sign a paper, take whatever item was inside, and go home. But the moment he opened the creaking wooden door, he froze. Inside the dim room, sitting in a corner like a forgotten shadow, was a tiny creature he had only heard about in stories. An alien baby dragon. Its pale white skin looked almost ghostly. Its eyes were pinkish red, blinking slowly as if the light hurt them. And the most shocking part was the barnacles. They covered the little dragon's body from head to tail, millions of tiny, rough, crusty bumps that looked painful and made the creature appear older than it was. It was hard to believe this small, fragile animal was actually alive. He stepped back, shocked and unsure. He had never taken care of anything more. COMPL, ICATE than a houseplant. And now he had inherited a dragon, something the whole region believed was cursed. The little creature stared at him with silent fear, not moving, almost as if it expected him to hit it or chase it away. His heart tightened. The dragon looked like it had been alone for a very long time. The officials who came with him quickly finished their paperwork and left as fast as they could. One of them whispered, "Good luck, you'll need it." None of them dared to go near the creature. They stood far from the door and watched with uncomfortable faces before hurrying down the dirt path. Within seconds, he was left alone with the strange inheritance. He didn't know what to do. Should he take it home? Should he leave it here? Should he ask someone for help? He took a slow breath and stepped toward the creature. The dragon flinched, curling its tail close to its body. It didn't growl, didn't hiss, didn't show teeth. It simply trembled. The barnacles made it look frightening, but now that he was closer, he noticed something else. Its wings were too small, its body too thin, and it looked extremely weak. He knelt down, trying not to scare it. I guess you're coming with." "And me," he said quietly, unsure if the little dragon could even understand. It tilted its head, looking confused. Its barnacle-covered skin made soft crackling sounds when it moved. The smell of dampness and old dust filled the air around it. He reached out slowly, giving the baby dragon time to pull away if it wanted. But instead of retreating, it shut its eyes tight, as if expecting pain. He touched its shoulder gently. The skin was colder than he expected, and the barnacles felt rough and sharp. He could feel the creature's fear through the trembling. He tried lifting it. It was lighter than he expected, but stiff, as if unsure whether it was allowed to be. Picked up. When he wrapped his arms around it, the dragon pressed its head into his chest, not out of affection, but out of pure exhaustion. It looked like it had not eaten properly in days. Its breathing was shallow, its movements slow, carrying the small dragon. He walked out of the old shed. The sunlight made the dragon squint and hide its face against him. The villagers nearby saw him and stopped what they were doing. Some whispered, some pointed. A few gasped loudly. "Why is he touching that thing? That's the cursed one? His uncle kept that monster? No wonder he lived alone." He tried not to listen, but the words reached him anyway. The villagers had always believed albino. Dragons were unlucky, but one covered in barnacles was even worse. People said barnacles grew only on creatures abandoned by their own kind. Some believed it meant the dragon carried sickness. Others believed it brought misfortune to anyone who cared for it. But as he held the tiny creature in his arms, he didn't see a monster. He saw something hurt, unwanted, and scared. Something that didn't have anyone else. He brought it home. and placed it gently on a warm blanket inside his small house. The dragon looked around slowly, trying to understand its new surroundings. It didn't move much, just curled into itself like a frightened kitten. He placed a bowl of water near it. The dragon sniffed it, but didn't drink. Its tongue barely came out before it pulled back again. He sighed. "You don't know if it's safe, huh?" he whispered Dot. He spent a long time sitting on the floor near the creature. He didn't touch it again because he didn't want to pressure it. Instead, he let it study him. Hours passed like this, quiet, slow, gentle. Once in a while, the dragon lifted its head to check if he was still there. Every time, he met its eyes with a calm expression, showing he wasn't planning to hurt it. Dot, as evening settled, he gave the dragon a small piece of soft fruit. He didn't know what dragons ate, but he wanted to try something simple. At first, the creature ignored it. But after 10 long minutes, when he looked away on purpose to give it space, he heard a tiny sound. He turned his head slightly and saw the baby dragon take a small, careful bite. It chewed slowly, as if worried the food might disappear. He smiled softly. "Good, that's good." Through the window, he saw people gathering outside. Some pointed at his house with worried faces. They stood in groups, whispering. A few even shook their heads as if disappointed. The rumors were spreading fast. One older man approached and knocked hard on the door. When he opened it, a man didn't even bother greeting him. "You can't keep that thing here," the man said firmly. "It'll bring nothing but trouble." "It's just a baby," he replied calmly. "A baby monster," the man said. "Those barnacles mean it's infected. It shouldn't even be alive." He felt the words hit him like stones. He didn't like raising his voice, so he kept it steady. "I'll take care of it. It's not hurting anyone," the man scoffed. "Not yet." After the man left, the neighbors continued talking among themselves. The atmosphere felt heavy. But when he closed the door, he looked back at the tiny dragon. It had lifted its head slightly, watching him with wide pink eyes. It didn't understand human voices, but it understood fear. The frightened energy from outside had reached it. He knelt beside it again. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You're safe here?" The dragon blinked slowly. It didn't relax completely, but its body loosened just a bit. Enough to show it understood he meant no harm. Night came, and he prepared a small bed near the fireplace so the room would stay warm. The dragon, still unsure, stayed curled in a tight ball. He stayed awake for a while, listening to its soft breathing. Every so often, the dragon made a tiny squeak, a sound that reminded him of a scared bird. Each time, he whispered reassuring words. He thought about his uncle. Why had he kept this creature? Why had he hidden it? And why had he chosen him to take responsibility? He didn't know the answers yet. But as he watched the fragile creature struggling just to lie comfortably, he knew one thing. Leaving it alone in that shed would have been cruel. Whatever trouble it brought, whatever people said, he couldn't abandon it. Not after seeing the way it trembled when someone approached. Just when he was about to fall asleep, he felt something touch his hand. It was cold and soft. He opened his eyes and saw the baby dragon pressing its nose lightly against him. It wasn't a request or a greeting. It was something simple, checking if he was still there. He smiled, touched by the tiny gesture. "Yeah, I'm here," he whispered. For the first time since he brought it home, the dragon closed its eyes peacefully. And in that quiet moment, he realized something important. Not his inheritance wasn't just a strange creature. It was a life everyone else had refused to care for. A life that needed someone to treat it with kindness. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to walk away from this tiny, barnacle-covered dragon. Not No, not ever. The next morning started quietly, but the quiet didn't last long. When he opened his eyes, he first checked the small corner where the baby dragon slept. The creature was still curled up tightly on the blanket, but now its head was slightly lifted, watching him with slow blinks. The barnacles on its body glowed faintly under the morning light, and he winced at how uncomfortable they looked. He got up slowly so he wouldn't frighten it. The wooden floor creaked under his feet, and the sound made the dragon flinch. It pulled its wings close as if trying to make itself smaller. He paused, giving it a moment to calm. "It's okay," he whispered, keeping his voice soft. "I'm not going to scare you." The baby dragon watched him closely, its pinkish eyes following every movement. He poured clean water into a bowl again and placed some soft fruit nearby. He didn't know much about dragons, but he hoped gentle foods would not hurt it. The dragon didn't eat immediately, but he knew it might try later when it felt safer. He stepped outside to get some fresh air, but the moment he opened the door, he saw people standing around again. They didn't try to hide their curiosity or fear. Some stared at his house like a dangerous beast lived inside. Others whispered while glancing at him as if he was making a big mistake. One woman folded her arms and said loudly enough for him to hear, "He shouldn't keep that creature here. It's bad luck." "Everyone knows that," another man nodded. "Those barnacles mean it's sick. That thing should have been taken away long ago." He didn't respond. Arguing never changed anyone's mind. He simply walked past them and went to fetch some firewood. But even while he gathered the wood, he could feel the villagers' eyes on his back. Their uneasiness followed him like a shadow. When he returned home, he found the baby dragon peeking from behind the wooden chair, its small body trembling. It must have heard the voices outside. He closed the door carefully so the loud noise wouldn't shock it. "Hey, it's all right," he said gently, kneeling beside it. "They're just talking. They don't know you." The dragon let out a tiny sound, almost like a soft chirp, but filled with worry. It wasn't a fierce cry. It was more like the scared whimper of a lost animal. The sound went straight to his heart. He sat on the floor near it, close enough for the dragon to feel he was there, but not too close to make it uncomfortable. He gave it time to settle. Minutes passed before the creature finally crawled out from behind the chair and sat beside him, keeping a small distance, but no longer hiding. Throughout the day, he tried to make the dragon feel more comfortable. He placed soft blankets around the room, gave it clean water twice, and even lit the fireplace so the room stayed warm. The dragon watched him all day, studying every movement, trying to understand if it could trust him not. It still didn't move much. The barnacles on its skin made every shift painful. Sometimes, when it tried stretching its wings, the crusted growths cracked slightly, and the dragon whimpered in discomfort. He wished he could remove them right away, but he didn't know how. He didn't want to hurt it further. Around noon, he heard another knock on the door. This time, it was a group of villagers, 3 men and 1 older woman. Their faces were serious. "We need to talk," one of them said. He stepped outside and closed the door behind him so the dragon wouldn't hear the tension in their voices. "You can't keep that creature here," the older woman said firmly. "It's dangerous." "It's not dangerous," he replied. "It's just scared. What if it attacks someone?" Another man argued. "Creatures like that are unpredictable." He shook his head. "It hasn't even opened its mouth to growl. It's barely strong enough to walk." Their expressions didn't soften. Fear had already settled deep in their minds, and fear was hard to push away. "We're warning you," one of them said. "If something happens, it will be on you." After they left, he stood still for a moment. It wasn't anger that he felt, it was sadness. They didn't see the creature the way he did. They didn't see its fear, its pain, its loneliness. To them, it was only a threat because it looked different. Because it looked strange. He went back inside and found the dragon sitting closer to the door than before, as if trying to listen. Its body was stiff with worry. "It's okay," he said softly, crouching down. "Nobody's going to take you away." The dragon blinked slowly and lowered its head. It didn't understand his words, but it understood his tone. As the afternoon passed, he tried something new. He placed a small wooden toy-around piece he carved long ago near the dragon. He pushed it gently across the floor, letting it roll slowly. The dragon watched, curious but unsure. When he nudged the toy again, the dragon lifted its front paw and tapped it lightly. The toy rolled back toward him. He smiled. For a moment, it felt like a tiny breakthrough. The dragon didn't play much, but it no longer hid from him. Later, he prepared a small meal for himself. As he ate, the baby dragon sniffed the air, lifting its head. He placed a small piece of fruit near it again. This time, the dragon moved a little closer and took a bite without waiting for him to look away. It chewed slowly, its small jaw moving carefully around the barnacles. "Good job," he said gently, and the dragon paused, staring at him with wide eyes. It wasn't fear, it was surprise. Maybe no one had ever praised it before. His evening rolled in. The sky outside turned orange and purple. Shadows stretched across the floor, and the dragon watched them move. He realized something. This might be the first time the creature had lived inside a warm home. Maybe this was the first time it had someone watching over it. The thought made him feel protective. At sunset, another challenge came. Children from the village gathered outside. They weren't angry, but they were curious. He could hear them whispering and giggling. One of them shouted, "Show us the monster." Another laughed. He quickly stepped outside to stop them. "Go home," he told them firmly but gently. "It's not a monster, and it's not for you to disturb." The children didn't argue much. They ran off, but their laughter lingered in the air. He sighed. This constant attention wasn't good for the dragon. It needed peace. When he went back inside, the dragon was hiding again. It squeezed itself behind the blanket pile, its eyes glowing softly in the dim light. He sat near it. "I'm sorry. People don't understand yet, but I'll protect you." A baby dragon slowly crawled out and lay beside him, close enough to feel safe but not touching. Its breathing steadied. Night arrived quietly. He lit a small lantern and placed it near the fireplace. The warm light made the room feel calm. He could hear the dragon making soft clicks with its tongue. Tiny sounds he had learned meant it was alert but no longer scared. Before sleeping, he placed fresh water near it and moved the blankets closer. The dragon circled the blankets once, then settled down, curling its tail around its small body. Its barnacles cast odd shadows on the floor, but he no longer found them frightening. He only saw how heavy they looked, how much pain they must have caused. He watched it for a while. "One day," he whispered, "I'll help you get rid of those. I promise." The dragon didn't answer, but its breathing slowed peacefully. He lay down on his own bed, exhausted but calm. Outside, the night was filled with quiet voices of insects and soft wind. Inside, the only sound was the little dragon's breathing. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The villagers were afraid. They didn't trust him with this creature, and they might never understand why he cared so much. But when he closed his eyes, he remembered how the dragon had tapped the toy, how it had eaten without fear, how it followed him with hopeful eyes. Those small moments were enough. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was clear. He wasn't alone anymore, and neither was the tiny albino dragon covered with barnacles. Days passed slowly, but each day felt like a small victory. He noticed that the baby dragon, a tiny albino creature covered in barnacles, was beginning to trust him a little more. It didn't hide behind the blankets as often, and it sometimes even lifted its head when he approached. Every movement, every small gesture, seemed like a message. It was beginning to understand that he meant no harm. He spent hours just sitting on the floor near it, watching it carefully. He wanted to learn everything about its movements, its habits, and its little quirks. The barnacles still covered most of its body, rough and uneven, making the creature look older than it was. But he began to notice the soft skin underneath. A patch here, a gentle curve, they're small signs of life that gave him hope. He started talking to the baby dragon more. He didn't expect it to understand his words, but the tone mattered. "It's okay," he would say when it flinched. "I'm not going anywhere." His voice was calm, steady, patient. Slowly, he could see the dragon's reactions change. The flinches were smaller, the trembles shorter. The trust was building. One morning, he decided to try something new. He carefully picked up a shallow tray and filled it with a few soft fruits, some water, and a tiny bit of soft bread. He placed it near the dragon and stepped back. For a long moment, nothing happened. The dragon stared at the tray, blinking slowly, unsure what to do. Then, after what felt like hours, it stepped forward cautiously and began nibbling at the food. He watched silently, his heart beating faster with every small bite it took. "That's good," he whispered, a small smile spreading across his face. "You're doing fine." The dragon paused, lifted its head, and looked at him. The pinkish glow in its eyes seemed softer, almost curious. He thought he saw the tiniest hint of recognition, as if it was learning that he was not only safe, but also someone who cared. That day, he tried to encourage it to move more. He knew the barnacles made every motion painful, but he wanted it to exercise its tiny wings and legs. He placed a small wooden stick across the floor and gently nudged it toward the dragon. It looked at the stick with uncertainty and slowly tapped it with a tiny claw. The stick rolled a short distance, and the dragon froze, staring at it. Then, with a tiny flick of its paw, it nudged it again. A small laugh escaped him. "Yes, you did it." For the first time, the dragon stayed interested, following the stick with careful attention. It wasn't play as humans knew it, but it was a small sign that it could explore the world without fear. He spent hours that day, rolling small objects gently across the floor, letting the dragon move them with its tiny paws. Every time it tapped, nudged, or pushed, his heart swelled. As the afternoon came, the villagers started gathering outside again. He could hear their whispers, their anxious voices. Some were angry, some afraid, some just curious. But he didn't let it bother him. He had learned that the dragon noticed fear as much as anger. If he remained calm, patient, and kind, it felt safe. The baby dragon, for its part, seemed aware of the tension. Its body stiffened when voices grew loud outside, but it didn't hide completely. It turned its head toward him, watching for reassurance. He crouched down slowly, keeping his hands open and steady. "It's okay," he whispered. "Nothing is going to happen." The dragon blinked and lowered its head slightly. He felt a small wave of relief. Every tiny gesture mattered. Every small trust earned was like a step on a long road he had to walk carefully. That evening, he decided to attempt something he had been thinking about for days. He wanted to see if the dragon would respond to gentle touch beyond just letting him sit nearby. He moved slowly toward it, keeping his hands low. The dragon flinched slightly, but did not retreat. He extended a finger gently toward the rough barnacles on its back. The dragon hesitated. Its eyes widened, and it let out a soft, almost uncertain click. Then, after what felt like a long moment, It allowed him to touch one of the barnacle-covered patches. The creature shivered slightly under his touch, but it did not pull away. "That's it," he whispered. "You're doing great." He spent the next hour slowly stroking the dragon, letting it get used to the sensation. He noticed that in certain areas, where the barnacles were thinner, the dragon leaned slightly into his hand. It was a small sign, but it meant a lot. It meant trust. It meant that it had begun to understand he was not a threat, that he wanted to help, not harm. During these days, he also began observing its habits. It liked to curl its tail under its body when it was scared, and it sometimes made soft chirping, sounds that seemed like questions or expressions of curiosity. It slept with one eye partially open, keeping watch over the room even in rest. Its movements were slow but deliberate, a sign of a creature trying to protect itself while still learning to trust. The barnacles, he realized, were not just a problem for him to solve. They were a barrier the dragon had endured for a long time. He could see the pain they caused it, the hesitation in every step, the careful way it shifted its tiny legs to avoid discomfort. But at the same time, he saw something else: resilience. Despite the barnacles and the fear, it was surviving, waiting for someone to notice it as more than a cursed creature. One afternoon, he decided to bring in an old mirror he had found in the attic. He placed it on the floor at an angle where the dragon could see its reflection. The baby dragon approached slowly, tapping the glass with a tiny paw. It looked at the reflection for a long time, tilted its head, and then tapped again. He watched, fascinated. It was as if the dragon was seeing itself fully for the first time, not just the barnacles, but the small, fragile body underneath. "You're beautiful," he whispered, even though it probably didn't understand the words. "I see you. I see all of you." The dragon paused and stared at him, its pinkish eyes reflecting the soft light. Then it moved closer to the mirror again, examining its reflection. He felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, with patience, it could learn to understand that the world wasn't only filled with fear and danger. Maybe it could begin to feel safe enough to grow stronger. That evening, as he prepared a simple meal, he noticed that the dragon had moved closer to the fire. Its wings, though still small and weak, were partially open, warming itself. He realized this was a huge step. It was the first time it had sought warmth without hiding completely. He placed another blanket nearby so it could rest comfortably. The dragon circled the blanket once and settled down, its body still trembling. Slightly, but less than before. He sat on the floor beside it, watching quietly. The room was silent, except for the crackling fire and the soft clicks the dragon made. He realized that these small victories trusting him, eating food, exploring tiny objects, feeling warmth, were all signs of progress. Each one mattered. More than the villagers' whispers, more than fear or judgment. Night came, and he prepared a small bed for himself on the floor near the dragon. He didn't want it to feel abandoned even for a moment. As he lay down, he felt the dragon nudge. Closer. It pressed lightly against his arm. Not out of affection yet, not fully, but enough to show that it recognized his presence. He closed his eyes, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The road ahead would be long. There would be days when the barnacles would make movement painful, when the villagers would scold him, when he would feel unsure about what to do next. But right now, in this moment, the dragon had taken a small step forward. It had begun to trust, and that was everything. He whispered softly in the darkness, one step at a time. "We'll get there, together." The dragon's breathing slowed, and its tiny body relaxed slightly against him. For the first time, he truly felt a connection, not just between caretaker and creature, but between two beings who had both been alone in different ways, both waiting for someone to understand them. As he drifted to sleep, He promised himself that no matter how long it took, he would continue to earn the dragon's trust. He would help it grow stronger, healthier, and eventually free it from the painful barnacles. He knew that every small step mattered. Every click, every tap, every hesitant movement was a victory in its own right. And in that quiet room, with the soft glow of the fire and the slow, steady breathing of the baby dragon, he realized something powerful. Trust, patience, and kindness could overcome fear and misunderstanding. It might take time, but he believed it could happen. The tiny dragon, curled up beside him, seemed to understand this too, even if only in a small, instinctive way. And that was enough to keep him going, enough to face the days ahead with hope that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The barnacles would still be there. The villagers would still watch and whisper. But he felt ready. For the first time, he felt like they could face it together. And in that moment, he knew the bond they were forming was stronger than fear, stronger than judgment, stronger than anything else in the world. Days turned into weeks, and each day brought new lessons. He began noticing things about the baby dragon that he had never seen before. Its small body, though weak, moved with surprising precision. Its pinkish eyes, which had once been full of fear, now showed hints of curiosity. The barnacles still covered most of its body, rough and uncomfortable, but they no longer seemed to dominate its entire being. Something beneath them was beginning to show something strong, alive and intelligent. He had spent countless hours observing it, trying to understand what it needed. Food, warmth, trust, patience, these were all things he could provide. But there was something else, something he couldn't see, what the barnacles really were. They weren't just ugly growths. He had tried to gently touch them, feel them, study them, but he didn't know how they worked or why the creature had so many. One afternoon, while he was tending to the fireplace, a soft knock came at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, he opened it to find a tall stranger standing there. The stranger's clothes were simple, but his eyes held a wisdom that made him seem older than he looked. "I heard about the creature," the man said. His voice was calm but firm. "I can help," he hesitated. "Help? I don't even know what it needs. I don't know how to take care of it properly." The stranger stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. He didn't seem threatening, but he radiated confidence. "It's alive. That's all that matters. I can show you how to help it." He led him to the corner where the baby dragon rested. The creature raised its head slightly, curious but cautious. The barnacles on its body glinted faintly in the eye. Sunlight. The stranger knelt slowly, keeping his movements gentle. "See these?" he said, pointing to the rough patches. "These aren't just barnacles. They're a type of parasite that attaches itself to weak creatures. It's not fatal, but it makes movement painful, and it can block growth. No one cared enough to remove them, so it's been living in pain." The words hit him hard. All this time, the dragon hadn't been ugly or cursed. It had been suffering. The villagers' fear, the whispers, the distance, they hadn't realized the truth. He looked at the small creature with a mix of sadness and determination. "So, it's not dangerous?" he asked. "Not unless it's provoked," the stranger replied. "It's afraid, and it has good reason to be. But with patience, care, and careful cleaning, it can heal. It will be slow, and it will be painful at times, but it can be done." He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. The stranger was offering not just guidance, but hope. The baby dragon shifted slightly, as if it understood that something was changing. Its eyes followed every movement of the stranger, watching, assessing. The stranger spent the next few hours showing him how to handle the barnacles. They used warm water to soften the crusty growths, gentle tools to ease them off, and slow, careful movements to avoid causing further pain. The dragon whimpered quietly during the process, but it didn't fight. It trusted them enough to endure. He knelt beside the creature, holding its tiny claw in his hand. "I'm here," he whispered. "I won't let anything hurt you." The dragon pressed its head lightly against his chest, not fully comfortable, but showing that it understood the reassurance. Each barnacle that came off revealed a soft, pale skin underneath, delicate and glowing faintly in the sunlight. With every removal, he felt a sense of progress, a small victory in what seemed like a long battle. It wasn't easy. The dragon flinched, at times shivered, and occasionally tried to move away. But each time, he stayed calm, keeping his voice steady, showing it that he wasn't going to abandon it. The stranger guided him, reminding him to be patient, to move slowly, to let the dragon lead the pace. By evening, a significant portion of the barnacles had been removed. The baby dragon, exhausted but calmer, rested against his side. Its breathing was steady, and its small body, though still weak, seemed lighter than before. He looked at it and smiled softly. "See? You're stronger than you think." The stranger nodded. "This is only the beginning. It will take weeks, maybe months, but each day will get easier. You're giving it something no one else ever did: care and patience. That's what it needed most." He spent the night sitting near the creature, watching it sleep. For the first time, the dragon's body was free from the weight of most of the barnacles. It moved slightly in its sleep, stretching tiny legs and wings, and he realized how much pain it must have been in before. His heart ached at the thought of how long it had suffered alone. Over the next few days, he followed the stranger's instructions carefully. He cleaned the barnacles that had loosened, applied gentle healing herbs to the skin, and gave the dragon soft food and water. He learned to read its expressions, the flick of an ear, the position of its tail, the way its eyes focused on him. He began to understand its moods, its fears, and its small joys. The villagers continued to watch from afar. They still whispered, still feared, but they didn't come close. And he didn't care. His focus was on the dragon, on helping it recover, on learning to trust it fully. He realized that the whispers didn't matter. What mattered was the connection forming in that small room, a connection of care, trust, and understanding. One afternoon, he noticed a change. The baby dragon moved more confidently, lifting its head higher, stretching its legs further, and even attempting to flap its tiny wings. It was not strong enough to fly, but the movements were a sign of progress. He clapped softly and whispered, "Good job. You're doing amazing." The dragon blinked at him, almost as if it understood. Its breathing was steady, and for the first time, it didn't hide its body from him. The barnacles were mostly gone now, and what remained were small, crusty patches that didn't slow it down as much. He realized something important. The dragon wasn't just healing physically. It was healing emotionally. Each barnacle removed was not only freeing its body, but also easing its fear, building trust, and showing it that the world could be safe. Night fell, and he sat on the floor beside the fireplace, the dragon resting against a soft blanket near him. Its eyes were closed, its body relaxed, and for the first time, he felt that sense of peace he had been waiting for. He whispered softly, "We're going to get through this together." The dragon twitched, slightly in response, almost as if acknowledging him. He smiled and stroked its soft head carefully. It didn't pull away. It didn't flinch. It simply allowed him to be there. And in that simple act, he saw a bond forming, a bond stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than anything he had expected. The stranger stayed another day to guide him further, showing him how to care for the remaining barnacles and how to prepare healing foods. Before leaving, he placed a hand gently on the dragon's head. "It will take time," he said, but it will recover. And you're the reason it has hope." When the stranger left, he felt a new sense of responsibility. He wasn't just caring for a strange creature. He was saving a life that had been ignored, feared, and abandoned. And he realized that the dragon had saved something in him as well, the patience to nurture, the understanding to listen, and the courage to face fear with compassion. That night, he sat by the dragon. As it slept, thinking about the journey ahead, the barnacles were mostly gone, but there was still work to be done. He didn't know how strong the dragon would become, or how the villagers would react once it grew. But he knew that as long as he stayed patient, kind, and attentive, the creature would continue to heal. And he also knew something else, something deeper. The bond between them had grown into trust. Not the simple trust of a pet to a caretaker, but a trust of two beings who had survived fear, isolation, and misunderstanding, and had found each other. That trust was the foundation of everything that would come next. As he looked at the dragon, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, he whispered softly, "You're not alone anymore. You have me, and I'll never leave you." The dragon twitched slightly, as if understanding. And in that quiet, dimly lit room, he felt a sense of hope stronger than anything he had ever known. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be more cleaning, more patience, more obstacles. But he was ready, because he knew that together, he and the tiny albino dragon covered in barnacles, once feared, once hated, now fragile and healing, could face anything. And in that moment, he understood the truth. Sometimes saving another life also saves your own heart. The next morning, he woke up feeling a sense of excitement he hadn't felt in a long time. The baby dragon, the tiny albino creature that had once been covered in millions of barnacles, was moving more confidently than ever. Its small legs carried it across the floor with careful balance, and its wings twitched as if testing their strength. The barnacles had mostly gone, leaving only a few stubborn patches, and the dragon's pale skin glowed softly under the morning sunlight. He smiled softly. "You're getting stronger," he said, crouching down to offer it some water. The dragon sniffed the bowl, then drank eagerly. Its eyes met his briefly, a small flicker of trust shining in them, and he felt a warmth in his chest. It was a look that said, "I'm ready to try. I'm ready to move forward. I'm not afraid anymore." He spent the morning guiding it gently. He placed small objects on the floor, wooden blocks, soft cloth balls, and tiny sticks, and encouraged the dragon to explore. At first, it moved slowly, unsure of how to use its tiny limbs. But after a few attempts, it began to push the objects, tap them, and even flick them with its tiny claws. Each movement was careful, but determined. He clapped softly. "Good job. Look at you. You're learning so fast." The dragon paused and looked at him, as if understanding that the praise was meant for it. Its wings twitched again, and this time it lifted them slightly, flapping them a little. It didn't fly, not yet, but the movement was strong and deliberate. For the first time, he felt the full potential of the creature he had been carrying. For he decided it was time to take a risk. He carefully carried the dragon outside to the small open yard behind his house. The sunlight was bright, the air was fresh, and the world felt large and alive. The dragon blinked, staring at the grass, the trees, and the open sky. It hesitated for a moment, then stepped onto the soft ground. Its movements were cautious, but it didn't try to escape. "Good, good," he whispered. "You're safe. Here." For a while, the dragon simply walked in small circles, sniffing the grass, nudging at the soil with its tiny claws, and looking around. He watched, staying close, but giving it space. He noticed how it lifted its head toward the sky, stretching its neck as if marveling at the sunlight. Its wings twitched again, and he encouraged it gently. "You can flap if you want. Try it. I'm here." The dragon lifted its wings fully this time and gave a small, experimental flap. It stumbled slightly, but didn't fall. Its eyes widened, and he could see a spark of pride in them. "Yes, that's it. You're doing amazing," he said, clapping softly. Hours passed like this. They stayed outside, the dragon exploring and testing its strength, and he stayed beside it, offering support when needed. He noticed its curiosity growing. It sniffed at flowers, pawed at small rocks, and even tried chasing a fluttering butterfly. Every small interaction was a step forward. Every small success was a victory. By late afternoon, he realized that the dragon's confidence had grown more than he could have imagined. It had even started following him when he moved across the yard. Its wings flapped occasionally, and its tiny tail swayed in excitement. It was learning to trust the world, and most importantly, it was learning to trust him. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, he noticed something strange. The dragon stopped suddenly, its body stiffening, ears twitching, and eyes widening. He turned to see a small fire had started at the far end of the yard, probably from a dropped ember from his fireplace. He froze for a moment, panic rising. The fire could spread quickly and endanger both the dragon and his home. Without thinking, he scooped up the dragon in his arms and ran toward the shed to grab a bucket of water. The dragon squeaked softly, alarmed by the rush but staying calm. In his arms, "Hold on. We'll be okay," he whispered. Though his own heart was pounding. He dumped the water on the small fire, dousing the flames before they could spread. Smoke rose into the sky, but the danger had passed. The dragon, still trembling slightly, pressed its head against his chest. He stroked its back gently, whispering reassuring words. "It's okay. You're safe now. We're okay." After that incident, he realized something important. The dragon had grown not just in strength, but in courage. It had faced fear and survived, relying on him and trusting that he would protect it. That trust was powerful, and he felt a deep responsibility. To honor it. In the following days, he focused on strengthening the dragon further. He guided it through small exercises, encouraging it to walk longer distances, flap its wings more confidently, and explore areas of the yard it hadn't dared to visit before. He noticed a change in its personality. It was no longer the frightened, trembling creature he had first inherited. It was playful at times, curious often, and cautious only when it sensed real danger. He also began teaching it simple tricks, rolling small objects, tapping wooden sticks, and responding to gentle calls. At first, the dragon was hesitant, unsure of what he wanted, but with patience and repetition, it started to respond. Each time it succeeded, he praised it softly, making sure it understood the encouragement was genuine. The bond between them grew stronger with every small accomplishment. One evening, while they were resting near the fireplace, he noticed the dragon nuzzling a small pile of blankets. It seemed to be arranging them, curling around them for comfort. He realized the dragon was learning to create its own safe space, a place where it could feel protected and secure. That was a breakthrough he hadn't expected so soon. The dragon's confidence grew further when he took it to the edge of the small forest near his home. At first, it hesitated, its wings flapping nervously. He stayed close, speaking softly, encouraging it to take small steps. Slowly, it began moving forward, sniffing the ground, pawing at fallen leaves, and watching the trees sway in the wind. The forest was a new world, full of sights and smells it had never experienced before, but it faced it bravely, guided by his calm presence. During one walk, they stumbled upon a small injured bird. The dragon approached cautiously, curious but careful. He watched as it tilted its head, observing the tiny creature, then looked back at him, as if asking for permission. He nodded. "You can help." Gently, the dragon carefully nudged the bird with its snout, then waited. It was cautious, gentle, and patient. He realized the dragon had learned empathy, not just trust, but the understanding that living things needed care. The bird eventually flapped away, unharmed, and the dragon watched it go with a soft click, a sound he had come to recognize as satisfaction. That night, back at home, he sat beside the fireplace with the dragon curled near him. Its wings were tucked neatly, its eyes half closed, and its breathing steady. He stroked its head and whispered, "You've come so far. I'm proud of you." The dragon pressed its head against his hand, almost like a gentle thank you. He smiled softly, realizing how far they had both come. From the frightened, barnacle-covered creature he had first inherited, the dragon had become stronger, braver, and more confident. And in helping it grow, he had discovered patience, understanding, and courage he hadn't known he possessed. He knew there would still be challenges. The villagers might still fear the dragon. There might still be times of pain or doubt. But he also knew that with patience, care, and trust, the dragon could face anything. And together, they could overcome any obstacle. As he lay down that night, the dragon sleeping peacefully beside him, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had come a long way, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be filled with new discoveries, new lessons, and new adventures. But for now, he allowed himself to feel the joy of their progress, the beauty of trust earned, and the bond that had grown stronger with every passing day. And as he closed his eyes, he whispered softly to the tiny albino dragon, now free from most of its barnacles, "Tomorrow, we'll grow even stronger, together."